France, 1943. The sky above Normandy was never quiet. German bombers crossed every night, hunting for factories, fuel depots, and soldiers hiding in the dark. But what they saw from the air wasn't always real. In a field outside Cherbourg, lights flickered where no city existed. Tiny fires glowed beside wooden buildings that vanished in daylight. From above, it looked like a town alive and breathing, but not a single soul lived there. It was made of canvas, paint, and wire, a lie carefully built to protect the truth. This was no ordinary village. It was one of many decoy towns, fake cities the Allies created to fool Hitler's Luftwaffe into bombing empty fields instead of real targets. They were built by engineers, artists, and local workers under strict secrecy. Each light, each painted shadow, had a purpose: to attract destruction away from real lives. The idea came from the success of the American Phantom City in Los Angeles. But in Europe, it evolved into something far more dangerous. There, the bombers flew low. There, one mistake meant death. In England, entire fake industrial zones appeared overnight. In France, whole rail stations and airfields were constructed from wood and tar. They called them Starfish Sites, traps for German bombers, named after the pattern of fires they would ignite to simulate a burning city. The code names sounded harmless: zebra, daffodil, clementine. But behind them were miles of fake lights and burning oil, all to save the real cities sleeping nearby. Imagine it: a field glowing with artificial fire while a real town stood dark and silent just 2 miles away. Pilots looked down and believed they had done their job. They dropped their bombs on illusions, and the people in the real towns woke up alive. Behind these illusions worked unsung heroes, electricians, pyrotechnicians, and set designers who risked everything for the perfect deception. They built fake bridges that could collapse when hit by light bombs. They designed electric trains made of glowing bulbs, moving on loops of wire. And when the bombs fell, they filmed everything to learn how to improve the illusion for the next time. One of those artists, a man named Colonel John Turner, once said, "If we can make the enemy see what isn't there, then every lie we tell is one less funeral tomorrow." The plan worked. Dozens of cities, Bristol, Exeter, Sheffield, and Glasgow, survived massive raids thanks to these ghostly decoys. In some cases, entire bombing runs were diverted, saving tens of thousands of lives. To the enemy, the cities burned. To the world below, nothing had happened. But for those who built the lies, the weight was heavy. They watched fake fires rage, knowing that somewhere else, real people were dying. Each deception was a victory, and a reminder of the cost of truth in war. And yet, these ghost towns became symbols of hope. They proved that art and imagination could stand against destruction, that creativity could save what courage alone could not. The world never learned their names. The fake towns were dismantled after the war, their remains plowed into the soil. Only a few foundations and blueprints survive, a silent testament to a time when illusions lit up the night sky and fooled Hitler's war machine. By 1944, the art of illusion had become a science. Every flicker of light, every false shadow, every painted runway had a purpose. And from those experiments in Britain and France, a new kind of warfare was born, one that would decide the fate of Europe itself. The Allies called it Operation Fortitude. Its mission was simple, but its execution extraordinary: to convince Hitler that the invasion of France would come, not at Normandy but far to the north at Calais. And to sell that lie, the Allies built an entire phantom army. It was one of the boldest and most dangerous deceptions in the history of war. In the fields of Kent and Sussex, soldiers arrived by the thousands, or so it seemed. What the enemy saw from their reconnaissance planes was an ocean of tents, tanks, trucks, and artillery. But in truth, most of it was made of rubber, wood, and paint. Inflatable tanks shimmered in the sunlight. Canvas aircraft lined makeshift runways. Wooden vehicles were parked along fake roads, casting shadows carefully adjusted to match the time of day. Even soldiers moved in formation, cardboard cutouts and mannequins placed at strategic angles. From the air, it was flawless. From the ground, it was nothing but theater. The deception didn't stop there. The Allies flooded German intelligence with fake radio traffic, messages between invented officers, and reports of non-existent divisions. Actors were even hired to impersonate high-ranking generals, walking through ports and camps in full uniform to sell the illusion. And at the center of it all stood a man Hitler feared most: General George S. Patton. The Germans believed he was their greatest enemy commander, so the Allies used him as bait, placing him in charge of this phantom army the so-called First U.S. Army Group. In reality, Patton was nowhere near Normandy. Every day, German spies reported troop movements, ships gathering in Dover, and tanks rolling toward Calais. They sent photographs, maps, and coded reports back to Berlin, all confirming what the Allies wanted them to see. It was a masterpiece of deception, built from the same imagination that once hid a city under the California sun. Then came June 6, 1944, D-Day. As Allied forces stormed the beaches of Normandy, Hitler hesitated. He refused to believe this was the real invasion. For weeks, he kept his strongest divisions near Calais, waiting for Patton's Phantom Army to attack. That hesitation, born from a web of lights, shadows, and lies, saved thousands of Allied soldiers and changed the course of the war. When the truth finally reached Berlin, it was too late. The beaches had been taken. The Allies had broken through, and the illusion had done what bombs and bullets could not. It had confused the enemy into defeat. After the war, much of Operation Fortitude was buried in classified archives. The actors, the artists, the radio operators, all vanished back into ordinary life, their names erased from history. But the legacy of those fake towns and phantom armies still lingers in the soil of Europe. Some of the wooden tank frames still lie rotting beneath English fields. In a few forgotten barns, farmers keep fragments of rubber from those inflatable vehicles, souvenirs of a war fought with imagination. They remind us that victory isn't always won by strength. Sometimes it's won by the courage to believe in a lie so powerful that it becomes truth. And as strange as it sounds, that lie helped free the world. When the war ended in 1945, the world celebrated victory, but the ghosts of deception still lingered over Europe. The lights that had once saved cities went dark, and the wooden towns that had protected millions were dismantled, burned or left to rot beneath the soil. The war had ended, but the illusions it created would haunt history forever. For years, no one spoke of the decoy towns or the phantom armies. The documents were sealed. The people who had built the false cities returned to ordinary lives. Carpenters, electricians, and artists who carried secrets too strange to explain. They had seen entire landscapes of lies, and they had watched those lies save real lives. How could you ever put that into words? In England, a young engineer named Harold Mackay went home to his wife and told her he had been working in lighting. She never knew that the lights he mentioned were the glowing fires that fooled Hitler's bombers. In France, a woman named Yvette Lebrun, who had sewn canvas walls for fake airfields, never told her children she had spent the war building cities that didn't exist. They were quiet heroes, forgotten architects of an invisible victory. In time, the truth began to resurface. Old photographs were found in attics, images of fake bridges, rubber aircraft, and rows of lamps burning in the dark. Historians pieced together the story, like archaeologists uncovering ruins of a world that had pretended to exist. When the files were declassified in the 1970s, journalists were stunned. The world discovered that some of the greatest victories of World War II had been won not by firepower, but by imagination. The documents revealed how Operation Fortitude had been built upon the foundation of those fake towns, how the earliest decoy sites of Britain and France had evolved into the global deception network that fooled Hitler's armies. The wooden homes and burning lights had become prototypes for the elaborate illusions that shaped D-Day itself. And yet, what moved historians most were the human stories behind it all. The people who built those illusions weren't generals or scientists. They were dreamers, craftsmen, and artists. They didn't fight with rifles or tanks. They fought with brushes, wires, and courage. One photograph, discovered in 1973, shows a group of British technicians sitting on the grass, eating lunch beside a fake airfield. Behind them, a wooden Spitfire gleams under the sun. At first glance, it looks like a normal snapshot of wartime camaraderie. But when you realize that even the plane behind them isn't real, the picture becomes something deeper, a portrait of belief. Belief in the power of illusion. Belief that saving a life was worth any lie. A surviving technician, when interviewed, said something that still echoes today. We didn't build fake towns to fool men. We built them to protect families we'd never meet.